to NostalgiaCast. I'm Johnny,
I'm Darin.
and today we're talking about Quiz Show, a 1994 film directed by Robert Redford and starring Ralph Fiennes. Now, hold on, before I go further than this, I always thought it was just Ray. That was pronounced Ray, and it's spelled
Interesting.
Ralph, but he
Uh-huh.
pronounces it Rafe.
Rafe. Yep, yep.
Yeah, I see. I never knew that because when you say it, Ray finds the F kind of blends into the F. So it's like it sounds like you're saying Ray finds,
Ray
not Rafe
finds.
finds. So yeah, starring
Gotcha.
Rafe Fiennes,
Uh-huh.
John Turturro, Christopher McDonald
Uh-huh.
is the quiz show host, and
Perfect
I think
role.
he's awesome, by the way.
Right, right.
And then we've
Rob
got
Rob Morrow.
Morrow. Yes,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
he's awesome as well. And
David
you got, of
Paymer's in there,
course,
Hank Azaria.
yeah, you got the two sleazy TV execs, Hank Azaria and David Paymer.
Right, right, right.
And then there's one more person I wanted to mention, and I believe it's Martin Scorsese.
That's right. That was Martin Scorsese, famed
Yeah,
director and nuanced actor, apparently.
yeah, and the character he plays named was Martin,
Right.
so that was kind of fun.
Not a
But
stretch.
whenever Martin Scorsese does show up, he as an actor, he does a pretty good job. He's
He's
always,
good in this.
yeah, he's not a bad actor,
Yeah,
which makes
yeah.
him a good director, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, but let's talk about Robert Redford, by the way, because this
Okay.
is his movie, not Scorsese's movie. Darren, see, I picked this movie because when I first saw it, I forgot when that was or how I saw it. I probably saw it with you, but I don't remember when or who with. But anyway, I remember just really liking it, like just being, wow, that was a good movie, and like just not like so much that I kind of like went crazy for it. I didn't go
Hmm.
out and buy it right away or watch it over and over again. It was just something that I went, wow, that was good, and
Yeah.
it always kind of like stuck with me that it was a good movie. And so when we thought about bucket list, I thought, in 1994, we already talked about Pulp Fiction, so we can't talk about that again. Um, so I was like, what else is there? And I was Quiz Show hit me, and I was like, you know what? Let's do Quiz Show
Hmm.
because it's just such a good movie. It just for me anyway, it brings me in and it keeps me engaged the entire time, and I just am riveted by the whole thing until
Yeah.
the end. It's just a really fun movie to watch.
Yeah.
Um, if you like that kind of thing, which I do. So like I say, my history's not very much, but what's your history with it?
Well, I don't like I said, I don't know if we saw this together. I know that I saw this in a theater because again, in the 90s, I was seeing everything. Not we mentioned with Shawshank Redemption, I didn't get a chance to see that one because R-rated films are a little bit harder to get into, but I could ride my bike and see a lot of these movies or drive my car whenever the era was. But I remember seeing this in the theater and like you, really enjoying it. This is the movie that I think it's a kind of movie that we take for granted because it's just a quality movie. It's not huge, it's not overly spectacular. There's nothing too flashy about it. It's just a solidly directed movie, a solidly written movie, a solidly acted movie, a solidly themed movie. It's just very, very solid. And I remember walking out of it going, yeah, that seemed like an Oscar movie to me. But again, I say they're a dime a dozen. This is the type of movie it got Oscar buzz. But today, this movie would be released straight to streaming. And that's kind of a shame because not all movies in theater should be these big, giant blockbuster Avengers, Doomsday Endgame type movies where every superhero on the planet is in. I just want to go and be whisked away to a different time and be told a good quality story. You know what I mean? And it's
Right.
funny that you picked this and Shawshank Redemption because both of these movies were notorious bombs at the box office. And they were released the same way. They were released like at a small handful of theaters and then slowly like opened up bigger and bigger, hopefully, in the hopes that word of mouth would kind of get it. But it just kind of backfired and didn't really garner that kind of attention. So this was looked at like Shawshank Redemption. Quiz Show was looked at as kind of a failure at the box office. But again, back then in the 90s, I didn't have a reckoning, like a recognition of what box office quality meant. I just thought it was a good movie, and I was like, I'm glad I went to go see that, and I paid my money for it. I feel, it's one of those movies you watch, and then you feel smarter when you walk out. I don't know
Yeah.
if, I don't know if that's giving the movie a little bit too much credit, but again, it's a very nuanced, smart movie where you're like, I just feel like I didn't. I feel like an adult watching it. So that's how I
Yeah.
felt. But it's funny because I think I saw it again because I swear I bought the DVD. I didn't have it this time and I had to rent it from Amazon, but it I hadn't seen it since maybe the late 90s. I remember we talked with on our Raising Cain episode, we had Lindsay who basically said, I don't think I've seen Raising Cain this century. And I think it's the same thing with Quiz Show. But again, sitting down and watching it, I was like, oh yeah, this was a good quality movie. But again, we'll talk about it. It's a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the moments hit really hard, especially in the year of our Lord 2025. It really stands out and still has a place, I think. You look at movies and you think, oh, this is how is this going to stand the test of time, which is our motto when we started, right?
Hmm.
But just some of these lines in here could be spoken today and still have just as much resonance. I thought it was incredible.
Yeah. It's kind of funny how that happens sometimes.
Right.
Um, I want to talk about Robert Redford, obviously. I mean,
Yeah.
he directed it, and he's recently passed away. Um,
Recently, yeah.
yeah, so I don't know how we do it. We always seem to time it where who we're talking about recently has passed on. But
Yeah.
Robert Redford, are you a big Redford fan, or what's your history with him?
He's not like a Robin Williams or a Steven Spielberg level person with me. But he's as long as I've known movies, I've known Robert Redford. I think that has to do with my mom being watching Robert Redford movies. He's just that smile and the charisma, and Butch Cassidy and the Sting have just always been present in my life. And so I just know Robert Redford. I know that, obviously he founded the Sundance Film Festival, which is huge. He really spearheaded a lot of careers. Talking Tarantino, like Pulp Fiction, I just saw a shot, a photo this week of him shaking Tarantino's hand, I think when Reservoir Dogs came to Sundance. And so just the way that he opened the doors for a lot of filmmakers because of Sundance and gave them careers. I think he really made a mark. And as an actor, obviously he's an icon and he does a great job. I don't know if he's like a super nuanced actor, but he's very enjoyable. I know watching Sneakers in a theater in 1992 was great because it's like, oh yeah, this guy is a movie star, right? And then obviously being a director and directing Quiz Show, that was a big draw for me to go see it because he won the best director for doing Ordinary People. He directed obviously A River Runs Through It, which is very, very slow, very, very gorgeous, and it just depends on if you can stay awake during it, if you think it's beautiful or not. The Milagro Beanfield War, Legend of Bagger Vance, The Horse Whisperer. So I don't know if he's. Well, let me ask you. I mean, have you seen Ordinary People? I haven't seen it for a long time.
I want to say yes. I mean, like I say, if I have, I don't remember, but I want to say yes because I know it won the Academy Award.
Right.
Um,
Okay. Then you
but
don't
I
remember what it's
recently
about or anything.
I did recently see A River Runs Through It, though. It was on TV last week.
Oh, okay.
So I sat through it. I didn't fall asleep.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Ordinary People, I remember watching, and I know that's got Judd Hirsch and Mary Tyler Moore and Timothy Hutton, and it's an actor's movie, which is great because Redford is an actor's actor, right? And so I don't know if the movie, I think it went up against Raging Bull that year at the Oscars, and
Mm.
I've talked about Raging Bull being one of my favorite films, and so I don't think it holds a candle to Raging Bull, but obviously Oscar loves actors who turn director, and so that was rewarded there. River Runs Through It. I do really like that one, but it does take a lot of patience, and I think it's just gorgeous the way that it's shot. Legend of Bagger Vance. I'm not a huge movie, huge fan of that movie, but I love the ending. I love how there's a part where the Matt Damon character accidentally hits the golf ball, and he can say that he didn't hit it, but he decides to say that he did to take kind of the stroke. And there's an amazing moment where the other two characters, the other two golfers who are going up against them, are there watching. And in a movie made today, they would say, "Oh yeah, you lost, man," or they would rub it in his face. But I remember being wowed in the theater because those other two characters are like, "Well, maybe you didn't see it move. Maybe you just it was a trick of the eye." Like they don't want to win that way. You know what I mean? And I just thought that was a very unironic, sincere way to play that moment. And I was like, this is the kind of thing that's going out of fashion because there's so much irony and there's so much cynicism and everything's dark and everything's kind of bitter. And I just thought that moment was very, very good. So like I said, as a director, he hasn't directed anything besides Quiz Show, which I think is his best film. He hasn't directed anything like super indelible, but he's a good quality director where you're like, oh yeah, that was a movie. He knows how to shoot a movie because he's been in movies for decades, right? And so anyway, him dying was kind of strange because again, it's not impactful because I didn't adore him and he died in the city over from where I live. But just the idea that he touched so many careers and helped bolster so many careers and was a face, you know what I mean? And people could recognize. I just think that was a major loss, even though I didn't feel it like sad personally about it. I just felt like, oh, this is a legend. This is an icon that's done a lot for Hollywood and a lot for movies. And so it's kind of, we're losing a lot of our icons now. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
Well, like you said, he definitely made his mark. He wasn't a film icon, but also like you, my mom introduced me to him. She was a big Robert Redford fan. I have
Mhm.
memories of watching The Natural with my mom
Right.
and just like watching her like just be like so in awe with him. And then also we watched The Sting together. And we
Hmm.
talked about The Sting with Brian Scuttle.
Yes, we did.
Um, on his podcast, and that was a lot of fun going over and reviewing that again and revisiting that. But I think I'd probably say he's a better actor than director. But
Yeah.
maybe because, like you say, he hasn't really had something that's really kind of like been his best. Maybe this is the best, because in my mind it probably is. But
Mhm.
I never got into his whole political side. Um, I can like an actor or a director and just forget about their politics. But when they start to like really inject their politics into their work, that's when I kind of go, all right, you're losing me.
Mhm.
Like just do the work. Just
Yeah.
be an artist, be a director, an actor, and do good work.
Yeah.
Don't start trying to force your politics down my throat. And towards the end with like Lions and Lambs or whatever it was,
Lines
is
for
that what's
Lambs. Yeah.
called Lions for Lambs?
Yeah.
And when he started doing that, and I was like, all right, he's losing me. But I can't fault him for this movie. This is a really good movie, and
Yeah.
so let's get into
Okay.
it. What
Perfect.
makes it so good?
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's a dime a dozen. It's just the, I know there are movies out there like this now. You can find them, but like when we went to go see movies, every movie, like two, sometimes three movies a week. You know what I mean? It was finding a movie like this was a treasure because it's like, oh, this is a good. There's nothing really wrong with this. I can't find anything wrong with this. And but it's again, it's not like when I say Redford is a fine director, he's still, in my mind, he doesn't have like a Jaws or a Godfather or anything that quite stands up there. But he's solid. And if Quiz Show is his top movie, then yeah, that can stand toe to toe with a lot of the greats. I think again, because of the way that it's very prescient and it kind of lasts and it's kind of being the quiz show scandals of the 50s being like the first. I think it was Redford says that like he used to watch 21 when he was a kid, and even then he watched Charles Van Doren as an aspiring actor. He watched Charles Van Doren, was like he felt like Van Doren was putting on a performance, and so he
Hmm.
kind of wanted to emulate that. But what was he also said though that he never doubted the show itself because TV was a new thing. I love how the movie opens really with a montage of everybody sitting in front of their TVs, and it's just this great communal experience where everybody like quiz shows on 7 o'clock Thursday. Everybody's going to sit there and watch it. You know what I mean? I love that montage building that. But it's funny that people, because TV was such a new invention, people believed implicitly in TV and whatever was in front of their faces. So Redford's idea with this movie was that, yeah, this is like one of the first scandals that actually rocked America and like introduced like a sense of disillusionment. So after this, you had Watergate, you had Vietnam, you have obviously everything filtering down, including to Charlie Kirk's death last week as we record this. Everything filters down, and there's like a disillusionment with the way that the public deals with real life events. I just think it was incredible watching it now, how a lot of its themes resonate today as much as they resonated like back in the 50s when the scandals actually happened or in the 90s when the movie came out. You can watch this at any point in history and it will still hit you in a way because you're like, oh my gosh, this could be made today about this scandal or about this person's death or about this political like event or something like that. I don't know. It's hard to find movies that are this prescient and that can hit like a topic that can just resonate through the decades.
Yeah. And when TV was first, coming out and starting out, the public wasn't used to being lied to.
Right, right, yeah, yeah.
They were really trusting, and so having finding out that they were being lied to, and it was more of a performance, like you said, or like they were tricking us.
Hmm.
Then I think that we kind of lost some trust, and I think that's where the downhill slide began.
Yeah. It even goes to like reality TV where some shows I'm glad that I can't remember the name of them, but some shows you think are reality that were actually planned. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
actually had actors on them. There's a famous a reality one that really ends with them pulling back and showing that everything, yes, is a set and everything was fake. And so that is the same kind of the lineage of the quiz show scandals. I just again watching it last weekend. I was like, holy cow. Why is this movie like it's hitting so hard now? There's nothing quaint about this movie because, like I said, you can fit any scandal today into this movie and be able to have a conversation about it.
Yeah. I like how Scorsese's character talked about they didn't tune in to watch Charles Van Doren. They tuned in to watch the money. And
Yes.
that's true even today with all these reality shows about winning the $1 million prize or all these things. And
Yeah.
it is a entertainment. It is a show. It's not real. They put these people, maybe real people, into fake situations and then record it and then make them like do these confessional things and then they have to like act it out and they put on a show. If you
Hmm.
don't think you put on a show when you're in front of a camera, you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
People put on a show in front of a camera, and so that's what this was. And I love the scene where he's testifying, where um, Stemple is testifying in front of the grand jury, and he's like, or the Congress, whatever it was,
Hmm.
and he's like explaining how everything was done, how they'd make him sweat, and how they'd make him like pat his brow or like bite his lip and stutter and stuff. I love that scene, and then he kind of points out that Van Doren's doing it, you know, and it
Yeah.
was like shocked, like really, wow.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it's all fake.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, the America was kind of like rocked to their core because it was revealed to them, but that's what TV's become. That's what movies become. It's all about being entertained. I think at the end they're like, we're in show business, right? That's really what it is. And now we don't mind as much. Now there's not much of an uproar when we find out this stuff. And I just hope people don't become apathetic to scandals because, you could trace a line from the 50s to today and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, like I said before, Redford kind of got more political towards the end, and I think this movie doesn't really inject politics, which is why I like it so much. It's just like this is the scandal, this is what happened,
Hmm.
and there's probably places where you could do that, and I think it's funny whenever politics is mentioned in this movie, they kind of like brush it off or laugh it off, like, oh, don't get her started on politics, you know what I mean, or
Yeah.
whatever. So, but anyway, you and I didn't set out to talk about politics when we started this podcast. We just wanted to talk about movies, you
Yeah.
know, why we like them so much, why we don't like them so much, and see if they kind of like still hold up now as opposed to then when we first saw them. And so rarely do we ever get into politics, and I don't want to get into it, but I just I don't know. I probably won't even say anything about what's going on, but
Yeah.
I'm I just think that where we are at now, we're in a bad place, and
Hmm.
I really hope that things get better, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm praying for. I just want things to get better, and so we can all heal.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's a great like every now and then they'd say a line of dialogue where me and Elizabeth would kind of side eye each other.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But I think that's what makes it great is it doesn't, like you said, it just plays the scandal as is, and you can infer whatever you want into it. And I think that's the sign of a great film is that it gives you the tools to make your own decisions and kind of infer your own meanings and instill your own like lessons into what you're watching. And I think it plays that middle ground very, very well. And so that's you you walk out of it again, you feel educated because it gives you the information and the tools that you can make your own informed decision, if that makes any sense. It doesn't one sided over the other and doesn't yell. It presents stuff as is, and there's a lot of tragedy and a lot of glitz and glamour and stuff. And it's just, yeah, it's fascinating from that point of view, I think.
yeah. Well, let's jump into the acting because I think that's what this movie really excels at is the acting.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, let's talk about Rafe Fiennes first.
Right.
Um, Uh, yeah, his Charles Van Doren. I think he was the draw for me when I first saw it. I
Hmm.
just that's when I realized what a good actor he was. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's really good. He
Hmm.
has so many moments in this movie where he's playing both sides, and you see him trying to like walk the line. He's because you know as the audience member what he's going through. You know he's lying, and
Hmm.
so when you see him like lie and then like look around and see if anybody's noticing that he's lying, you know those are really good moments for him as an actor. And like I just love watching those moments and spotting those moments because there's so many of them. And then when he finally comes clean, it's just like you see that weight just gets lifted off of his shoulders, and he's so like, and he almost tells his dad that one scene where he's talking to his dad over the cake,
Yeah.
and he almost says it and then he doesn't. You're like, just tell the truth. You know what I mean? Like just get it off your chest. But anyway,
Yeah.
man, Ray Fiennes for me, I think he, along with Rob Morrow, but we'll get into him next. But I think Ray Fiennes really he carries the show and he does a really good job.
Hmm. Ray Fiennes was really strong in the 90s. It's funny that this is the role. It's a matinee idol role. I think if Redford was young enough, this is the role that he would have put himself in, right?
Yeah.
And he's obviously everybody thinks he's really attractive. He's this kind of Anglo-Saxon like wasp, like everybody like loves him and adores him, and he's just great to look at. And it's funny that this comes out the year after Schindler's List, where being nominated for Goth, whatever his name is, how we pronounce it, and being such a monster in Schindler's List, and then seeing him play such a sympathetic character in this. What I think is great, and I want to talk about the Paul Atanasio script, which we'll get to, but a lot of the way that the acting is so good is because of that script. I think it gives all these actors so much meat to chew on. And Turturro, Ray Fiennes, Rob Morrow, they all have so much. You know what I mean? They all can give so much to this. Paul Scofield, who's probably gives my favorite performance in the movie.
Yeah, he's good.
They've got so much to gnaw on. And what's so great about Van Doren is he's from this family. Again, he's a wasp. He's this lineage of these rich people. His dad, obviously, Mark, is a famous teacher, famous poet, and he's got a lot to live up to. And yeah, he's knowledgeable, and I think he finds he we can tell that he's innocent, right? He wants to be on Tic Tac Toe originally, but then they pushed over to 21, which Enright also produces, and you can feel him kind of submit to the glitz and glamour and submit to the temptation, right? He almost does it. He does it without saying anything. Like he's like iffy about it. Is this a test? That kind of thing. And then when
Yeah.
he's actually on the show and they give them the chance, he knows. He's like, well, that's interesting, right? Because he knows that they've given him an answer that he can, a question that he can answer, right? And he just goes for it. And you can tell in that moment that he doesn't feel like he lives up to his dad. And so this is his chance to do that, right? This is his chance to be a voice at their dinner parties and things like that. I love the scene again. He thinks that he's doing this to impress his dad, but his dad doesn't have a TV.
Yeah.
And so when they're at the dinner table, they can quote Shakespeare, but he doesn't have a TV. He's not watching his son's accomplishments, right?
Right.
He has to buy Mark a TV for him to watch it. And even then, Mark can't finish the show because it's too intense. But you have that scene, like you mentioned, with the chocolate cake, where he almost tells him, but I think the dad says, like, you will know responsibility once you've had a son. Life will give you meaning once you've had it. And I think in that moment, because Van Doren has just had all this guilt and obviously Goodwin's on his case and things like that, and he realizes, I think in that moment, that his dad's just proud of him because he had a son. He doesn't necessarily need to do anything, and so that's, I think, what makes him decide to quit the show, right? And so you get that shot of him just so happy, that smile, that sly smile that he thinks is
Yeah.
not on camera.
Yeah.
And even then, like, what's the line that Goodwin says to him about his uncle? Like the thing that drove him crazy about his uncle cheating on his aunt was that he got away with it, right? And so even though he gives the show up, even though he tries to tell Enright and the
Fr-
Friedman character
Friedman. Yeah.
tries to just start giving me answers I'll answer them. Like, just give me questions and I'll be able to. Even though he does that, it still gnaws away at him because he's keeping the truth from his dad. And you have that great confrontation scene in the classroom, and even at the end when he thinks he's given that speech. You're right. It's such a nuanced performance. There are so many moments where Ray Fiennes just gets to shine and just gets to be another character. And yeah, I don't know if he was nominated for an Oscar for this, but he damn well should have been.
Yeah, he should have been. I like how the father is like, "Your mother always said you were the actor in the family."
Yeah,
That's a good line there.
exactly, exactly.
Um, I was gonna say something else about Ray Fiennes, but I forgot. So let's move on to Rob Morrow. What do you
Okay.
think? For me, so I love his Boston accent. I think
So
it's
do I. Yeah.
yeah, okay. Sometimes Boston can be tricky because you can go overboard, with the Patika and the Harvard Yard thing. But he does a really good job. You can obviously tell he's like deep, in Boston. Like he's got not just a slight accent, but he's like really kind of just dives
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
But I love his character too. I love how he's so suspicious of everything, and he's just like you're rooting for him to like take down television the whole time, and it's just and you feel so bad during the end when Van Dorn is like confessing, and all the people are like, I really want to commend you for such a great apology or whatever, and then one and he's looking around like, what's going on here? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
his looks are just they're so good. It's so fun to watch.
Yeah. He from Northern Exposure, I don't know why he I think he's got a good charisma on screen. Like I said, his Boston accent is overboard, but he's having so much fun with it. I love
Yeah,
listening to him talk. Like you can tell it's an accent, but I
yeah.
think it's fun listening to him. I texted you because the whole half of the movie I was like, "Who is this? Who's he reminding me of? I don't. Why do I know this face? He reminds me of somebody." And then you were like,
I was like Ben
Casey Affleck.
Affleck, Casey Affleck.
And I think you're doing that because of the Boston accents. But
Yeah.
finally, it's not the eyebrows. I think it's the hair. I was like, that's Patrick Dempsey. He looks
Ah,
exactly like Patrick Dempsey in this. Not so much the acting, anyway.
yeah, but
But
Dempsey can't do the accent.
no, he can't. What I love about Goodwin is he's in the middle, right? You've got Stemple, who's the Jew, right? That's how they call him. I'm trying not to be racist about it, but he's the Jewish dude, right? You've got Goodwin, who's also Jewish, and then, like I said, you've got the Anglo-Saxon, the white Van Doren, right? The affluent Van Doren. So Goodwin is in the middle. He's obviously made it. There's a scene where he's talking to Stemple, right? Stemple's like his whole personality is because I'm a Jew and all this stuff. That's why, I'm kind of like down in the dumps, that kind of thing. I'm basically being given the shiv or given the shaft because of my heritage or something like that. There's a scene where he's talking at their house with Goodwin, and he realizes that Goodwin is also Jewish, and he's like, how did you get into Harvard?" Right? So even though Goodwin is also Jewish, he was able to get into Harvard to make something of himself. And so Stemple kind of looks up to that in that one scene. But now Goodwin, when he meets with the Van Dorens, it's tantalizing for him, right? You have that first scene where he's looking at the Chrysler car. He
Hmm.
obviously can't afford it, but he loves the idea of being in that car, right?
Yeah,
It's the same thing when he's with the Van Dorens. Like you can tell he really likes Charles. He likes him a lot. Like there's a sincerity to Charles that just kind of, they kind of bond in that. But I also
yeah.
think that Goodwin looks at, I could do this. He enjoys being out on the boat on, in Massachusetts or wherever they are. Like he enjoys being with the family. And so it's tantalizing for him. And I think that's a big part of why he doesn't want to throw Charles under the bus, even though Stemple makes that impossible for him, right? It's just, again, you've got these three actors that are very nuanced and kind of all tie together with their same kind of goals and same kind of situation. He's maybe the weakest out of the top three guys, but I think he's still very strong. I don't know if I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that he's got a lot less impressive about him than the other two guys on either side of him.
I can see why you would say that. But I do think he does still hold his own, and I think
Yeah.
um, he he definitely he goes toe to toe with Ralph Fiennes and Turturro, I think. But
The
I can
scene
see why
with
you would say. I can see
the
why you say
scene
that.
with Charles where they're finally confronting each other. They both know what's going on,
Yeah,
right? He knows that Charles is lying. Charles knows that he's onto him and that knows that he's lying, but they're still having that conversation. And the camera, Bauhaus's camera keeps zooming in like closer and closer to their faces as it gets more intense, right?
yeah,
Such a good scene with each other, how they're just not saying anything with their words, but they're saying everything with their body language. It's incredible. That scene's
yeah,
just an actor showcase.
yeah. It's a great scene. All right, John Turturro. I love him as an actor. I've always loved him. I think he plays really good, really quirky characters.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite roles he's done is obviously Oh Brother, Where Art Thou. I love him in Big Lebowski. It's a
Mhm.
small role, but I love him in that movie.
Barton Fink.
And Barton Fink, yeah, he's great in that too. And then this one, I mean, he just embodies Herbert Stemple, and you just believe that he is that guy. I just don't question it for a second that he is Herbert Stemple.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like you can't go wrong with John Turturro. He does a great job.
My question that I had in the notes is John Turturro naturally an ugly man? Because they really make him out to be ugly and kind of distasteful in this movie. And I think that's, I don't know. What do you think? I'll say some other
Well,
things, but what do you think?
I know they gave him some bad teeth in Oh Brother, and that didn't help him. And then I
Right.
think he has some teeth, like a teeth thing in this one too. But I don't think he's ugly per se, but he's not the most attractive person.
Right. But the way that the movie's shot and the way that they frame him in the shots makes him seem like this sweaty kind of like attention whore, right?
Yeah, and the oversized suit and everything.
Yeah, so he's unattractive in the movie from a character standpoint and from a personality stand, all that stuff. It's very strange, but I was like, I don't think he's this ugly in real life. I think he's doing a good job because he's hunched over, like he's mousy in a way, like when he's talking with Enright at that dinner table is like leaning forward, like kind of again the way that he performs it is kind of like rat-ish. You know what I mean? He's just trying to And I like the line that Goodwin says about him, like he got dragged from the spotlight with his teeth marks still in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love the idea that Stemple in the movie at least is not so much after the idea of justice. He just wants to be seen. He wants to get his rightful place. He wants to be famous. And so if he's not going to be famous on the TV show, he's going to be famous for bringing down the TV show. You know what I mean? I think it's a very, and at the end, again, when Charles is basically ruined, they
Yeah.
have that moment where I think Stemple realizes like I could
I
be
just
this
ruined his
guy.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, and like my life was ruined. This is just an endless circle. I like what he says. You photographers, like you never leave a man alone unless you're leaving him alone. I mean, it's very,
Yeah.
very telling. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he has the wife. Obviously, I felt so bad for her a lot of the time because it was like he wasn't very good to her. You know what I mean? He hides it from she doesn't know that he got the answers. That's a big shock
Yeah.
even to me. I'm like, you didn't tell her that you got the answers? You know what I mean? Like, I'd be upset too.
Yeah. Well, I
So
think
it's
he like
crazy.
looking like the big shot, looking like the smart guy.
Yeah.
Even though the thing is, both these guys are really smart. That's the thing. They're both really smart people, but they just had
The
to
fame
put,
gets to them.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
fame got to their head.
Right.
Um, so there's the couple, supporting characters, Hank Azaria and David Paymer. I think I love these two together, by
Yeah.
the way. I think they do a great job as the sleazy TV execs. Um, and you can't go wrong again with Hank Azaria. I
Right.
mean, Hank Azaria is great, man. He plays
Mhm.
these roles so well, and David Paymer, I love him too.
Right.
Um, you have any thoughts on those guys?
No, I mean they're always fun to see. David Paymer, especially in the '90s, was one of those faces where you're like, oh, this will be good. I'm gonna love
Yeah,
whatever. I just love hearing him talk. I think obviously I want to talk about Schofield, obviously, but what
sure.
do you Scorsese just in his little bit part? I mean, we talked about him a
Yeah.
bit at the top. What do you think?
I love it when he shows up in movies because you're always like, oh, there he is. You see the caterpillar eyebrows and the glasses, and you're like, there's Scorsese.
Hmm.
And like I said before, whenever he does show up, he really brings it. He,
Yeah.
he's a kind of guy that you want to direct your movie because he's a good actor too. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That's what I think makes a good director is a good actor, and
Right.
so it's fun to see him on screen.
Yeah, as Martin Rittenholm, he's what the note that I put down is like he's really good. Like it doesn't seem like he's an acting. It seems
Yeah,
like he's actually this person, but it's also very natural. And I think that, like you said, I think either off camera or when we start recording, that's what makes him a good director because he's a good actor, right? I think he can. I think it's funny that Michael Ballhaus, who's his regular cinematographer for all of his movies that he does, I like that he shot this movie, and so it's kind of
yeah,
comfortable. Redford going, oh yeah, we'll bring in Scorsese and it'll be fine. Like, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
we'll have him be this part. But again, I think he's just very natural, and every word that comes out of his mouth, I think he believes it. It's really fun watching him.
yeah. Even the wives in their roles, they do a good job. Like I forget her name, the one who plays Toby.
Johan Carlo, I think that's her
Yeah,
name.
and then Mira
Mira
Sorvino
Sorvino.
is
Yep.
is a yeah Goodwin's wife, and I think they both do a good job too.
Right.
Like
Right.
anyway, everybody just kind of brings their A game in this movie, and that's why I like it so much. It's just
Yeah.
an actor's movie. Um,
Paul
anything
Schofield,
else you want?
though,
Yeah,
he, the way he plays, I say this about acting a lot, is when you're performing. And if it looks like, and I have a big problem with Ben Affleck because it looks like he just is saying lines. I don't believe that he actually lives I've never believed Affleck is an
really.
actor. Yeah, I don't enjoy him. I think something's off about him.
I've got a few that I think he's really good in.
Yeah, he's not terrible. He's given some good performances, but just most of the time, I'm like, I don't believe you're living this person. I think you're just saying the lines and that's it. With Schofield, I don't think it feels like none of his role is written. It seems like he's actually this person. And all the words that he says are coming from, you can see it in his eyes. I don't think he's reciting lines of dialogue at all. It just seems like he's just so natural. The way that he talks, the way that he thinks, the way that he moves his body and his hands and the way he talks with people. I was just like, this guy's really, I don't know how to explain it. I just don't think he's performing dialogue. I think this is actually him.
Yeah,
You know
you
what I
feel
mean?
like you've met the guy before, like you know
Yeah.
him. Like I've met people like that in my life, and I was like, when you see it, play it back at you, you're like, yeah, I know that guy.
Hmm.
Like I've talked to that guy before. I know that old guy. He's a nice guy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's how you feel about him.
And
Um,
the way his character is presented, you think he's going to be this very, you know, hard-fisted kind of, stern lecturer of things. But you see him at that party and he's reciting his poem or whatever, and people are joking with him and he's joking back. It's
yeah,
very warm. Like he's a very warm, likable person to the point where like he can't believe that his son actually did this. Like he says, "This is my name. You've taken our name." You know what I mean? And you've run it through the ringer. But he still goes to Congress to support his son. And it just you feel so bad for him though. I don't feel like he's vindictive at any point during the movie. He's just very honest. And the part of the end when the reporters are like, "We just got word that Charles is not going to be invited back to teach," right? I just feel like Mark is like, as long as my son gets to teach, I think I'll be okay. And the fact that that's taken, that you see him break
Hmm.
and he just has no words. And, Charles knew this was coming. Like he knew this would happen. He just kind of welcomes it because at least he's free of the guilt. But
Yeah.
that moment where he realizes that his son is no longer going to be a tenured teacher or tenured professor, it's just really heartbreaking for him because you want to see him. That's his legacy, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. He definitely plays it really well. You see those moments, you see it in his eyes, you know that he's feeling the emotions.
Mhm.
And so that's what I think makes the performance so good.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you wanted to talk about the script. This movie was based on a book written
Mhm.
by Goodwin.
Right.
So
It's a relatively small part of the book. I think it was the book more encompasses like the whole 50s, 60s era. But I just think when you tackle a movie like this, and we've talked about it like in Young Guns, where we talked about history versus fact, that kind of thing. We've talked about you and I have had conversations about does it matter if it's true to life? Like it's a movie, obviously, you have to dramatize some stuff. And there is a lot that went on. I'm just going to read, I've done a lot of research on that. It's just fascinating reading about
okay,
the quiz show scandal. But the popularity of radio shows from 1938 to 1956, this is what gave birth to television quiz shows, right? Um, in 1954, I thought it was interesting. The Supreme Court ruled that radio and television shows could give prizes to contestants. You had to put that into law. I thought that was really interesting. In so you had all these kind of TV shows. You had the $64,000 question. You had Dotto. You had Tic Tac Doe. You had 21. You had a bunch of these shows that were all of a sudden The Big Surprise was another one. All these shows were again the the talk of the town. Everybody would show up and watch they were all the rage, right? And so after he was kicked off the show, Stemple told this New York Journal American journalist Jack O'Brien that he was actually offered the answers. He didn't have any proof, and so the article that the Jack was O'Brien was trying to write never got published. In 1956 December, also on The Big Surprise, there was a contestant named Dale Logue who tried to file a lawsuit against NBC because she claimed that during the live taping of her show, their quiz show that was shown, they gave her a question that she could not answer during the pre-tape. And so she felt that they were kicking her off the show. So she filed a lawsuit. But again, it never really went anywhere. And then in 1958, there was a show called Dotto that was the first show to be publicly outed as fixing their results. And so that's what launched this 9 month long New York grand jury investigation. But even though I thought it was funny because rigging games at this time in the late 50s was not against the law. But what was against the law is all the producers of these shows deciding to lie to the grand jury, to perjure themselves. That's what was against the law instead of revealing to the public that they were frauds, right? So that's
hmm
what they got in trouble for. But the judge for this inquiry closed the case. He sealed it. And that's what got the attention of all these other. I know that Dick Goodwin in the movie, I think they condense him from all these, from a bunch of different people. He only became involved in the scandal, I think, 2 years after 21 was off the air. And I think there was a series of exposés by a guy named Dave Gelman of the New York Post. He was one of the main people. Like I said, for when you put together a movie, you're going to amalgamize a lot of these things to kind of
sure,
make it so you're not doing a 9 hour movie.
yeah,
But again, what was after this thing, like I said, these reporters started getting wind of this quiz show scandal. And so that's what brought it to the attention of the United States Congress. And so that's where all this stuff happened. And so when you look into the history of and how all these, and obviously it disillusioned America, that kind of thing. In 1960, Congress amended the Communications Act of 1934 to prohibit the fixing of quiz shows. So it's fascinating that you had to pass a law that you could give contestants prizes, but then you also had to pass a law that these shows had to be true and honest to themselves, right? It's funny that in the kind of the context of history. But if you're looking at the like the 21 scandal, Stemple, and I think he was champion for at least a few months, and Enright said later that he was actually set up as an unlikable kind of villain that they could pit a hero against. And so when they found Van Doren, again, it's weird. It's like a race war, right? You've got the Jewish guy versus the affluent white guy, right? Kind of going. And again, what does Stemple say? It's like you always pit a
You
Gentile
know,
against a Jew,
right.
and then the Gentile ends up winning more money. I thought that was interesting. But the way that the movie presents it, it's not true. Stemple did answer on the waterfront incorrectly, but that's not what lost him the game. That was actually, I think, their first or second game that they played. They played at least four games against each other, four shows. And then at the very end, the Jack Barry character, I guess one of the rules, he can announce at any point, like to one of the contestants, since they don't know what the score is, they can say, "Do you want to stop playing now? We don't know what the other person scored, but if you stop playing now, we can end the game, and if you're ahead, you'll win." And finally, that's what won Van Doren the game. He was ahead
Ah,
18-10 in their
okay.
fourth game, and that's what won it for him.
Okay.
So again, just a series of stuff. And then, like I said, all these rumors started to come out. The Dotto thing came out, and so that's where all this the scandal kind of opened up. And then the only other thing that's people are going to be upset because not all the facts are represented. People are going to be upset because their real life relative is not presented in a good light, that kind of thing. But I don't know. I think it's all for the purpose of a good movie and for good drama, right? And so even though Van Doren, it says in the very end that he didn't teach again, he actually did eventually go back and teach at some colleges. I think they're just trying to paint it in a way to make it more of a tragedy. But again, very fascinating from that point of view. And the script by Paul Atanasio, who was a Washington Post film critic when he first started. If you're looking at Paul Atanasio's his filmography, he wrote Quiz Show, obviously. He wrote Disclosure, which we saw. I know
Okay.
we saw together.
Yeah.
Donnie Brasco, he wrote The Good German. He also did uncredited rewrites in Speed, which we covered, Air Force One, The Bourne Ultimatum, and The Fighter, the
Wow. Christian
Amy
Bale?
Adams, yeah, Christian Bale movie, right? And so he's just been. I like the idea of a film critic that ends up being a writer, a screenwriter, because he
Yeah.
has an insight into things. And this, I don't know. First of all, what do you have any thoughts about the whole quiz show thing and how you think it's funny that that's what kind of opened the doors to everybody's disillusionment in America?
Yeah, I think that is kind of funny. Well, the scandal that I remember when I was a kid was the press your luck scandal. And it wasn't really a
Mm,
scandal, just the guy who was really good at the game who figured
yeah,
out the
the
you know
pattern.
pattern of the lights was able to win the game over and over and over again, and that freaked everybody out. And I watched that movie actually recently. It's on Netflix, I think, or
Okay.
it's on Prime or somewhere. But I watched that, and I was like, that's the one that I remember from being from a kid, from
Yeah.
my TV show quiz show days, where there was like $25,000 pyramid. There was, what was the Push Your Luck? What's the other one? There was one more that I mean, Jeopardy, obviously. Wheel of Fortune. These game shows.
Yeah.
We would wait to watch those every week too. They'd come on once a week, and you'd get your family and you'd watch these TV shows.
Mhm.
But anyway, yeah, it is funny that a quiz show is what started the downslide.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, going with the writing, I think, like I said, when you're going to do a true to life movie, you have to condense stuff. You have to make things more dramatic. There's a lot of subtle writing in this script that and again, I don't know if it was nominated for best screenplay. I hope it was because it's a very nuanced thing. From the very beginning, like we talk about that first scene, which someone who doesn't pay attention will go, "What did that have to do with anything?"
Yeah,
Right? But it absolutely has to do with setting up one of the major themes of the movie, which is like how glitz and glamour can corrupt you, right? He's there, though, test driving or looking at a car, and he says, "If my wife knew I was here, she would kill me," right? It's all about fame and fortune first, apologizing for things later. It also sets up, like we talked about, Goodwin's character of being somebody who wants the glitz and glamour, but recognizes where he comes from. Right.
right.
I love the idea. And again, the first line that when they're talking about Sputnik, you hear the announcer say, "All is not well in America." And I was
Yeah.
like, what did he just say? With stuff going on. So it has all these, like I said, with showing all the people like gathering around their TVs, showing the backstage and the odds and ends of how they put together the quiz show stuff is fascinating. I love, like we talked about, and like I said, when we're talking about the acting, we're basically talking about the writing because those actors have so much to sink their teeth into. That confrontation between Van Doren and Goodwin is great. I love when Goodwin just believes in him, and then there's that. Obviously, he's at that party where he answers the question about the king, right? And
Yeah,
later during the when he's naming all the kings, when Van Doren and he gets the boudoir, right?
he gets
He
that one
gets
wrong. Yeah,
the name wrong, and you sense that. Oh, Goodwin's like, what was that? Like, I love that little nuance
yeah,
writing.
yeah,
Right. I love when Enright is appealing to, first of all, he tries to appeal to Van Doren by saying, think about what it can do for the cause of education, right? That's what gets kids are going to start reading books because they'll see you on the show, right? And then
yeah,
later, when he's telling Stemple to take a dive, he also says the same line. He says, "Think about the cause of education."
yeah,
Right, appealing like to how this is going to educate people and make them, all this stuff. It's just very nuanced stuff. I
yeah.
really love that stuff. Was there anything, and I'll probably think of some more stuff in here, but was there anything in the writing that you particularly liked?
Yeah. See, I think what makes this script so good is it includes real world things along with the story part of the script. Like you
Yeah.
can be a good screenwriter and write the story and just go, scene to scene to scene, and then all the plot stuff comes out and it all kind of, builds to something and it ends and it can be a good script. But
Hmm.
when you include real, life things that you do every day, like making dinner or dancing with your wife or offering someone something to eat or like just the stupid things that you do or the cigarette being smoked a certain way, whatever it is, all that stuff. Then when they inject that into the script, that for me is what makes it so good
Yeah.
because that's real life. And like that birthday party scene, that's one of the best written scenes in the movie. It is so fun to watch the back and forth and everyone jumping in the right time. And like even though these characters are only in that one scene, you believe that that person belongs to this family. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because they're so comfortable and they're so like in the moment. It's just, man, it's just such a well written script. It's so polished.
Well, the way that at the party it keeps cutting to Goodwin's face, like I don't think Goodwin says a lot, but you can tell on his face that he wants to be a part of this, right? I love that that kind of comes out. And they're very smart, but not in a way. Again, I think the birthday party is very, very warm, right? I like how Mark says to the friar or whatever, look at his head. He's aerodynamically engineered to go
Yeah.
straight to heaven. I thought that was a funny line. Um, the scene when again when it's Charles and Mark sharing that piece of cake, I don't know what it is. Just the way that Charles says, when I was a kid and I would open the fridge and there would be a slice of cake and I would eat the cake with a glass of milk, the simplicity of that, right? I'm paraphrasing obviously, but I wrote down, yeah, you have these childhood memories that stick with you. It doesn't matter what the cake tastes like. It just reminds you of childhood. And that's
Yeah.
the thing that brings you joy, right? And that's when Mark says, well, the thing that brings me joy is you. At least that's what I got out of it, right? I have a son. I'm proud of you. So stuff like that.
I
The,
think too, you long for your childhood when you're
yes,
feeling guilty.
absolutely.
So he wants to be innocent again. That's the whole thing.
Right, right. Again, some more lines. I like when Charles and Dick are out on the boat and Dick's trying to grill him about the scandal or the questions and stuff like that. And Charles leans in and says, "If what you're saying is true, then everybody lied." And
Yeah.
again, I was like, "What did he just say?" And that really kind of stuck out. So I don't know. There's later, obviously, when he meets with the head of NBC. Remember how he's I think the head of NBC comes in. I can't remember his name, but he basically says, "I need you to show up for
Kintner.
the show up for the grand jury, right?" And they're having that conversation, and he says, "Speculation in our society has a way of becoming fact." And at that moment, I was like, "This movie, it speaks to now."
Yeah.
You can apply these lines to what's going on now. It's crazy that I don't know if we're learning from these things. I think it's just an endless cycle of disillusionment that these scandals that just keep coming up over and over again, these political assassinations, whether actual or reputation wise, right? All these things that are coming out, it's like an endless loop of things over and over and over again. And that's what's really depressing about this movie. That's what's really nuanced about this movie. Like you mentioned, I love when Van Doren goes and basically gives a statement and says, I was a fraud, right? Everything came too easy, right? And a few of the people praise him. And he's like, And as an audience member too, I was like, don't tell me this is how I couldn't remember how it ends. I'm like, don't tell me this is how it ends when they applaud him. And then you have the one judge who says, I don't think you should be applauded for finally telling the truth, like doing something you should have done from the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's what gets it's such a great moment because when they start applauding, you realize that, yeah, I shouldn't be on Van Doren. He did cheat the system, right? It's not his fault. He's not the villain. But yeah, he was kind of the patsy here. And
Yeah.
you're so conflicted because I think Fiennes plays that moment so well because you don't know if he's relieved or if he's just crushed because he tried to give his heart, right? It's just like I said, it's such an in the middle movie. It lets you make your own decisions. Obviously, it's tragic. Obviously, the heads of NBC and the heads of Geritol or whatever, they came out on top because they figured out a way to finagle the truth. You know what I mean? So they don't come out. And it says Enright and Jack Barry became popular again after they were
Yeah.
kind of demonized.
Well, what I think had to happen for us to learn something is people needed to be held accountable for their actions. And when that didn't happen, that's why we didn't learn from our
Yeah,
mistakes because we weren't held accountable. And
right.
that's what's going on again today. People aren't being held accountable for the mistakes they made or the lies they told or lies they're still telling.
And they're believing everything. We continue to believe everything that we see on TV without doing further research into it.
Yeah.
Somebody
Well,
says something on TV and we just flat out believe it and we take the side of the person who's talking the loudest. You know what I mean? That's the accountability is never taken to task if you're just going to keep moving the goalpost. You know what I mean?
yeah.
To
Yeah.
blame it on somebody. And so yeah, that kind of filters out. I love the line like we set out to get TV, but I think TV is going to get us.
Right.
It
Yeah.
continues today.
When I was watching that scene, I had a couple moments in my life where I I cheated on a test, but then I went and confessed that I cheated on this test. And the teacher was like, "Well, thanks so much for being honest, and don't worry about it. We'll just keep the score as it is." And I was like, "I got the really good score on this
Yeah.
test. I didn't redo it. I just got praised for telling for being honest later after cheating."
Uh-huh.
And then one time I thought of this too while I was watching this movie when some friends and I went bowling and then we just like left without paying. We didn't pay for the games. And then we started feeling guilty. So we went back and paid for the games and told them, hey, we played these games. We didn't pay for them. And the bowling alley gave us like 3 or 4 free passes to come back later. So the lesson we were learning was if you lie, you can get free games.
Oh no. Yeah.
But anyway, so like I thought about those 2 times in my life and I was like, huh.
Well, when you get away with it too often for too long, that's corruption, right? That you're going
Yeah,
to
that's what I'm
keep
saying.
doing it.
Accountability, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I really like that Van Doren took accountability for it. I like that and even though in the movie version it crushed him, I think he wrote like an expose or an article in 2008 for the New Yorker, basically explaining the whole thing and coming clean on a lot of it. But even though he was kind of the patsy, I think I like that he stood up and was like, yeah, I did this. You know what I mean? It had to
Yeah.
happen. But the sad thing is that again, it was the maybe the first scandal, arguably the first scandal that rocked America, but it wasn't the last. That's really the sad thing.
Yeah. Well, you wanted to talk about the song, Mac the Knife?
Yeah, just as a fine little, I was named after the singer Bobby Darin, right, who's very
Okay.
famous for Splish Splash and for Mac the Knife. And doing some research, I'm gonna just paraphrase here because I didn't do quite as much research that I wanted on it. The Mac the Knife song was actually based on a song called Mac the Knife from the Three Penny Opera, which is a German opera, and then ended up being played on off Broadway, like in different kind of iterations, things like that. It became popular because of people like Louis Armstrong, because of people like Bobby Darin, who turned it into an upbeat kind of song. It's about a murderer. It's about a knife wielding murderer, right? Mac the Knife. And so a guy named McKeith or whatever. So on the Three Penny Opera, it's basically a murder ballad, I think called a moritat, where they talk about like the murder and how all the things that he did, and so it became popular that way. And the Bobby Darin song, like I said, popularized it. So the movie plays. It's interesting that Redford decides to open the movie with the Bobby Darin upbeat popular version of it, which doesn't really get to the bones of what it was actually based on. And then for the end credits, it's Lyle Lovett singing actually a song called More Tot, where it's the same lyrics and it adds a few lyrics to it that makes it more interesting. Um, a line that I think one of the lines is, "Oh, the shark has pretty teeth, dear, and he shows them pearly white. Just a jackknife has McKeith dear, and he keeps it out of sight." And I think again, that's a good statement on how these game shows kind of stuck it to us, right? I mean, he's showing that it's all about the glitz and glamour. It's all about the show. It's all about following the money, but they're really stabbing you in the back. They're being dishonest with you, right?
Yeah.
Again, maybe I'm making that a kind of a maybe I'm whittling that down so it's not as important, or I'm kind of trivializing what that means. But the fact that they open the movie with an upbeat Bobby Darin version and then they end the movie with Lyle Lovett singing the same song, but very dark, very slow, very ironic, over shots of these laughing hyena people who are just falling for everything that's in front of their faces, right? I thought that was such a great kind of sticking the knife into your side kind of end the movie like, yeah, you're watching an entertainment, but we're duping you at the same time, right? Not
Yeah.
everything is true. I just thought that was kind of an interesting choice.
Yeah, I thought it was a good choice for the soundtrack. I always knew that song as a Steve Martin bit
Yeah,
from his stand-up comedian
yeah.
days. Um,
So it's
but
just
yeah,
funny how things get transmuted and changed over time from their
right.
original
I
meaning.
didn't know it was from an opera though, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so one more thing I wanted to mention was
Hmm.
the cinematography in this movie. We talked about a little bit about it, but it is, I think it's really well done. But for me, I just wanted more iconic moments, more of the, more a little more flashy, and
Hmm.
it would have been like, an A+ movie. I mean, it's still really good. I'm not gonna, say it's bad. It's great, but I just wanted more of the, fancy trick shots,
Yeah, yeah. And I think we talked about it. It's appropriate for the time that the movie was made, that it's not too showy. Like it's weird if you have a movie, kind of weird if you have a movie that's in the 50s with like 2000s kind of swooping camera work, things like that. But I get what you're saying. There's a couple shots. There's obviously a few split diopters, which obviously
Yeah.
catch the eye. I really like that shot in the beginning where it's Van Doren in the office with Paymer and with Azaria, and it's a shot of Van Doren kind of trapped in
Sandwiched.
between them. Yeah, sandwich. It looked
Yeah.
like he's in between like a cliff and two cliff faces. I thought that was very interesting. And so
Yeah.
I I like obviously the overlit shots where they're Stempel and Van Doren are in the booths and they turn off the air conditioning and there's just sweat. Like obviously they're dabbing instead of wiping, but you really feel the heat in there. I think the cinematography is appropriate. Again, Bauhaus is a great cinematographer. I don't know if, and I get what you're saying. I was trying to find other shots in here, going over it again. I was like, what other shots were like really
Yeah, right. There's
cool?
only a couple. Yeah.
Yeah, and aside from the way that they staged that confrontation between Mark and Charles in that classroom, where it's just teacher and son talking to each other, and they're just, it's like an interrogation in a way. I don't think there's
Yeah.
anything too flashy in here. It's appropriate for the time that the movie's set in, but yeah, I was like, I could have used a couple more kind of iconic standout shots, I think. But
Yeah.
overall, it's a very pretty movie.
I say that because when I was working on a film one time, I was the first AD on the movie, and we were kind of in day 2 or 3, and we were just kind of going, getting coverage, doing over the shoulders, doing the wides, doing everything you're supposed to do, and
Hmm.
then we kind of like realized, wait a minute, we're not getting anything that's memorable. We got to start like thinking outside the box and thinking, what can we do that would be more iconic? What would something that we could like that would make this movie stand out? And when we had that conversation, we started changing how we were filming things. We started trying to be creative and it was so much more fun to make a movie where you're thinking like, okay, what can we do? What can we do? What's going to play for this scene in this moment with these characters? What's going to tell the story the best? And that's when it gets really fun. So when I see a movie like this and there's opportunities to have really fun shots and they don't take it, I kind of go, be a little more creative. You can be straightforward and tell the story fine, but
Hmm.
just be a little more creative in how you tell it sometimes and it makes all the difference.
Right. When you watch a Spielberg movie, the way that Spielberg and a Kurosawa movie, or a lot of these other filmmakers, but Spielberg's obviously my favorite director, living director, so I'll kind of single him out. The way that he blocks scenes is so dynamic and is all about power structures. Every scene that he shoots, but the fact that he's done it for so long, it kind of makes it, you take it for granted. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But you look at scenes from Jaws, you look at scenes from Raiders of the Lost Ark, you look at scenes from anything that he shot originally, there's so much invention, so much fun in the way that he can turn what a normal director would make 4 or 5 shots, Spielberg can do in a single shot just by having an actor walk up close to the camera. It can turn into a close up. How you can have them walk back and you show it's a 1-2 shot or an over the shoulder. He can arrange these shots within one single take, one single shot. That's like, again, watch him. It's like 4 different shots, and so that's what's fun watching the dynamism of a Spielberg movie, and he knows how to do that. this, I agree. A lot of the time, it's just sitting some people in a room and having them talk with each other. But again, I think the acting is so good in so many of these scenes that that's what really sells it for you.
Yeah, I agree with that.
When good blocking could have put over the top, but still, the acting really sells, so you don't really think about that.
Yeah. All right, I think that'll do it, Darren.
Yeah,
I think we've covered everything.
right. Well, again, quiz show, wonderful movie. I'm just amazed that it has so many moments, so many lines of dialogue that can apply to things today. That's amazing,
Yeah.
and it's also very, very sad. And so, like I was saying, I sat down to watch the movie, I was like, I haven't watched this since the 90s. Is it going to stand up? And I was like, oh boy, does it stand up better than I thought it would ever stand up,
Yeah.
because it's a comment on what's happening today. And I think I don't quite know if I'd call it a masterpiece, because like I said, there's nothing fantastic. Like, you just look at one thing and it's like, this is what movies are about, other than the fact that, yeah, this is what I want from a movie. I want a good
Right.
movie with a good story and good acting and good solid direction, and everything just kind of clicks. And
Yeah.
it's just great. And the fact that it also is very, very prescient and timely is just kind of a bonus.
Yeah. All right. Well, then that'll do it for our quiz show for NostalgiaCast. I'm Johnny.
Or do we want to talk about what's next week?
Yeah, sure. What's next?
Well, we've done 394 movies by now, and so we're going to close out our 94 retrospective. We've had Kevin from Real Spoilers, we've had Tom from Real Spoilers, and so their third party, Joey Batiste. I've been wanting to talk with him for quite a long time. He's always fun to listen to on Real Spoilers. If you've listened to the show, you know what I'm talking about. But I've been planning on doing something with a while. We finally got the whole Real Spoilers crew on. And so when I asked him for a list of movies that he wanted to talk about, Tombstone was one of them. And even though Tombstone was a 93 movie, I've always wanted to talk about Wyatt Earp from 1994. It's funny how you had two movies within 6 months that basically told the exact same story in very different ways
Yeah.
with very different presentations. And so it's kind of a cheat. We're going to be talking next week about Tombstone from 1993, but as a comparison to Wyatt Earp, starring Kevin Costner from 1994. We're going to have
Okay.
Joe Batiste from Real Spoilers on. I think it's going to be a real fun conversation, even though all of us are going to have to watch 5.5 hours of Wyatt
That's what I
Earp
was going to say. I got to
material.
watch 5 hours of movie. All
Right.
right.
So it'll be fun. Like we talked about with Young Guns, I'm fascinated by the Old West. Wyatt Earp is maybe, I think I mentioned him in the episode, maybe my favorite frontier kind of idol and kind of character. And so I'm going to love talking about kind of that
Okay.
history. So,
Sounds good. Then for NostalgiaCast, I'm Johnny.
and I'm Darin.
And can the unstumpable Herbert Stemple be stumped?
See if I can get the Boston accent. Do you think you might see me before the peacock moults?